Well, hey, everybody, and happy Saturday to each and every one of you. I'm so glad you could join us this afternoon. As always, welcome to Soul Shift. Listen, and if you've been following for the last several weeks, I believe some things have shifted, not just in people, but in places, in situations, and in things. My previous guests have been amazing, and this week's conversation is going to be an absolute blessing. I'm positive of it. Not only am I looking forward to it, but I got a feeling that you all are looking forward to it too. Now, for some of you, you may not know this amazing, not just an amazing woman, not just an amazing person, an anointed. You hear me when I say, listen, I'm going to say it one more time. Now, if you know anything about me and this here music, when it comes to these, uh, look, church scenarios, honey, I don't just say that. This young lady absolutely blesses my heart. Her name is Cherael Wynn Ross. And if you did not know her, I'm telling you, by the time this is all over, you're going to want to get to know her. So I'm going to introduce to some and present to others Miss Cherael Wynn Ross. And the crowd goes wild. Hey, Cherael. And for those of you
Hello.
that don't know, listen, my name is Dion, the Radical Midwife, and I'm excited about this shifting on today. Welcome, sis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
No, ma'am. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I am absolutely honored. And I know that this conversation is probably going to shake some things up in the hearts and minds of young women across the globe, mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, friends. And I know if I know nothing else, it is absolutely necessary.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm sure for uh, an itching ear or two, it
Mhm.
is absolutely going to be an ear grabber just for the sake of what next, what now, and more than anything, sis, how are you recovering so well? Oh my God.
Ugh, man.
I'll start right there. Like, how are you doing this? And we'll go backwards, but I'm gonna start right there. I think it's a great place to start.
Um, I'll say that is like it's such a weird question to hear back because sometimes when you go through, you just go through, and so you don't look at it. I probably should be, take some time to look back, but sometimes I'm just so grateful to wake up and be happy that morning. And when you have multiple mornings where you're happy after things that you've gone through, and then it's a week and I was happy all week, everything
Right.
wasn't perfect, but I've learned how to. So I'll say I've learned to be grateful. Recovering, part of my recovery process has been gratitude. It also has been obedience. And I'll say
Hmm.
that has not been the easiest part of that.
Hmm.
That's been the hardest part, has been obedience to God and listening to God and allowing Him to lead and guide me. And it sounds so cliche, but it literally, I got to a point where almost if I didn't pray to God that morning, I didn't know what I was going to do the rest of the day.
Listen,
So total dependence was how
that's good.
I am recovering. Um, I've learned through life and just your journey in general, as long as we're in flesh. Um, I remember when I was taking a counseling class, and one of the kind of capping off the degree was to go to any type of either AA, NA, whatever type of meeting, right? And you sit in there and you kind of sit there anonymously, gain the information, and kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. And so I never really understood why somebody who had been alcohol free or narcotics free always said it didn't matter how many years. Somebody for could have been clean for a week, somebody could have been clean for 10 years, 27 years, 30 years, and everybody kept saying I am recovering,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm learning that part of the recovery process is how far have I came through my recovering process. And once you realize you are recovering, uh,
Hmm.
there is a sense of gratitude that comes over, and you look back and it's like, man, I've been recovering for this amount of time,
Right.
you know. So that's all I could
Right.
say. It's been total dependence on God, and almost putting it all back on Him to say, this is, if I'm obedient, you're gonna take care of me, and I'm looking for you to do it. So
I'm going to say this, Cherael, because I don't think that we have this conversation super often. And I think because of culture and how um, anybody that knows me knows I'm not about church, I'm about kingdom.
right, right,
Right. At the end of the day, it is. I love church though. I'm a church girl. Don't ever get it twisted. I love the fellowship. I love the community. I love spending time with people who believe the same thing I believe and honor the same God that I honor. I love people. I love
right,
God's people, even when they don't know that they are His people. But there is always power in spending time with people who understand on a different level. And you said something that we always hear holiness is right, and for people who are okay with living a basic, average, mediocre life, that's almost like cuss words. You know
right.
what I'm saying? And I remember a time where it was, oh, God knows my heart. That good old
Mhm.
fashioned excuse that we use, because we
Yes,
do. I did it,
yes, yes,
especially when I was religious and not
yes.
kingdom.
Hmm.
You make excuses for passivity when it comes to building, maintaining, managing, and honoring God for real
Yeah.
with your life. And so you guys remember I said earlier that not only is she anointed, but she's oily.
Hmm.
And some people are anointed and not oily. They got a beautiful voice. They can sing the floor down. But listen, the presence ain't coming. You be like, oh, she could sing. But we don't get to we don't get to presence. And you said the O word,
Hmm.
obedience.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times people don't necessarily know how powerful obedience actually can be. And we're not just talking about from being randomly loosely clad with life,
Right.
but obedience has a large gamut, a large scale. And so let's back up. I noticed as your hand was up, you no longer have your ring on.
Yeah. Well.
Well, Jesus. Well, Lord.
Yeah.
And that's a hard topic,
Yeah.
especially as a mom, as a woman of God, as a
Yes.
believer. That is nothing to celebrate,
Right.
right? And so we won't act like it's something the way pom poms act, because it's not.
Right.
It's difficult. It's painful, and you are recovering well. And so let's just kind of back up, because as time goes on, how long have you um, been divorced? If that's okay for me to ask.
Yes. So I'll say it's been this year, since this year. Um, but the process of it for me started about 3 years ago,
Sure,
unfortunately. Um, of course, that's not easy.
sure,
Part of I'll say transitioning, part of um you talked about church and the religious aspect of it, and so
sure,
um you go through that fake recovery, right?
sure.
Right, so that fake recovery
Mhm.
process of, I can handle it all, I got it, I can do it. That process, that breaking down process lasted for about 3 years. So I'll say this year was when my divorce was final.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So just to unpack a little bit, because when you grow up in church and you stay, you stay and until this happens and that happens, you stay until the son, you made a covenant, and it is what it is. It is an absolute promise. And I know, as a believer, for not just you but for him, I'm sure the mental part of
Right,
making an active decision to say, okay, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it well.
right.
um, how do you arrive there? Like, who is your support system, and how did you even get to a place where you were like, listen, I only get to do this one time?
Hmm.
which
Mhm.
is the reality. We live one time and one time only. Who helped you through this process?
Okay, so I'm gonna be very honest with you. I had, and I know now that it was a part of my journey. I went through that journey and that process by myself.
Wow.
And for me, the reason why I say it's a part of my process was because the way that I knew God, it had to be matured and it had to be developed and it had to go. And it was a way that I had to totally depend, like my level of dependence on God now is so, your
I
name is
understand.
radical. Okay, it's so radical right now because I did not have those crutches. I didn't have anybody
Mhm.
that, because I think when people feel they know what's best for you, and it comes from a genuine place, and
Sure,
people are fearful of what you may experience because of a decision, right?
sure.
Because I'm making this decision to do this. I know I've been ministering, I know I've been doing this and doing that, but I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. And whatever you do that kind of goes against what we traditionally would view as the path, right? And what you're supposed to do, right? When you go through this, you pray. When you experience this, you need to get on your face. Yes, you do. But at the same time, there is still there's still a human, there is still a real life thing that we have to walk out. And if it's
Mhm.
your mental health, if it's, your physical health that's at stake because of what you're experiencing, at some point it was their comfortability or what I need to do for
Mhm.
me and myself so I can be better,
Right.
right? And so I can not just be a better mom, but be a better Christian, be a better whatever it is. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? And
Mhm.
so for me, I had to experience those things I know now
Mhm.
alone. And I walked that process alone. And it was very, very lonely. It was I remember there were some times that I just would get in my car and cry because
Mhm.
I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't
Mhm.
do anything else. I literally I felt hopeless. I felt far from God. I felt like He wasn't there. But
Mhm.
there was still an inclination of like, I have to do what I need to do for myself.
Mhm.
And so I can be better, right? And
Sure.
I'm going to walk this process out with you, God. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't have a plan. I don't
Right.
have a plan. And so now being in this space, I know who, like, the provision that God has
Yes.
provided me. I
I
would have
get it.
never known God to be that.
Right. I
Never
get
know
it.
if everybody, and I know now God had to separate. He had to pull people
Mhm.
away from me, people that I was close to, people that were mentors,
Mhm.
family members, uh uh
Mhm.
people I depended on for everything, people I would call and bounce my ideas also off of, and didn't even realize my level of dependence on their wisdom and on
Mhm.
their walk and on their faith. And so now it's like, okay, God, you're trying to show me who you really are. And
Yes.
that level, when I say that place
That's
was
some
a
good stuff.
lonely place,
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
I know him to be now. I know for a fact, had I not gone through what I went through alone,
Mhm.
I would not know God to be who is. So now when I face issues where I need provision, I'm not calling mommy, not calling dad and Pat. I don't need to do that because I
Mhm.
know God to be somebody who walks things out for me and
Mhm.
provides in
Yes.
more ways than one. Makes ways I never knew him in that way.
I get it.
Now I know him in that way. I know the comforting power of God. I know
Mhm.
the loving power of God. I know what it means to be a friend of God and for
Right.
him to be your friend
Right. That's
because
good
I
stuff.
experienced that where
Yeah.
I did not have that. And so I'll say for me, that process was something that God had to isolate me and make it to where I had to walk it out on my own. Because
Sure.
who I know him to be now, I wouldn't have known him to be that.
I get it. A lot of people don't understand, this is for the person that's watching that, um, maybe you haven't gotten to your super deep, dark place yet. I'm excited because had I been given the gift at your age
Yeah.
of what I got through cancer,
Right.
through my baby, because, at first everybody was there.
Right.
I was surrounded. And then you get to this place where there's nobody there but you and God, to the degree that you find out that everything starts and ends with him, that loneliness,
Yep.
that grief,
Yep.
that hopelessness. You have to feel all of those emotions. And so for the person that is feeling hopeless and broken and lonely and scared and I don't have a plan and I don't know what's next, listen, this is what I found. Now, I, from the outside looking in and with the gaze that I have according to what works inside of me,
Yeah.
I watched that brokenness. I watched that isolation. I watched that separation build insulation in you. I
Mm.
watched it. Now, I remember we were in, was it Pittsburgh or Antioch?
Yes. Yeah.
The first time I ever spoke to you.
Yes.
And I saw your brokenness in a different level.
Yes.
Do you remember what I said to you?
Man,
And it wasn't a lot.
I felt like you saw me though that day,
I
and
did.
you
I was looking
definitely
right through
spoke.
you.
Yes, yes, I remember that, and I
Uh-huh.
remember you speaking to what you saw in me that I
Mhm,
didn't even see in myself anymore. It was like a candle that had been blown out.
mhm,
So yes, I remember.
mhm. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I remember, and I think I remembered seeing you as a little girl singing, and now I'm looking at this grown woman with babies and a husband, but I'm looking at this brokenness that was so visible, which is what makes me so excited about your now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Which is what made me call you about your now, because people don't understand that that brokenness is so necessary
it
and it
is.
didn't come to kill you,
Right,
right?
right.
It don't feel like that when you in it.
Yeah,
Not only did it not come to kill you, but it came to build you. And it not only did it come to build you, but it came to make sure that you understand that there is but one source.
that's it. That's it.
One source and one source only. I'm gonna take us down a little bit of a different trail because I think um, women need to know certain things. I'm divorced.
Yeah.
I've been divorced for many years, and I remember when I got divorced, a family member said to me, "Now you need to take him to court. And you need to take everything." I
Mhm.
mean, just da, 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 da.
Yep.
She let me have it, and I listened out of respect. And I remember my response being, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that at all. Not only am I not going to do that, but Holy Spirit gave me a completely different instruction.
Yes.
I'm going
Hmm.
to trust that part. Um, Prayerfully, everything was amicable.
Right.
We got babies to raise.
Right.
No more fatherless children. I don't care what you decide to do. Um, Tell us a little bit about that part of your journey and now going from being two parents in a home to going to singleness and having to learn how to co-parent.
Yes. I'll say that what has helped has been the realization, I think, on both parts that neither one of us could do this without God. So for me, I was fortunate to that degree,
Hmm.
um, for him to come to some realizations with God himself as well.
Right.
And I do believe, I remember this was probably because it was, I'm not going to lie to you, in the beginning, it was a bunch of back and forth. And it
Sure.
was something that was, could be toxic and was
Sure.
toxic in certain areas.
Sure.
Um, and I remember calling him on the phone and I said to him, I said, in spite of everything that we've experienced, I still see the man of God that you are.
Mhm.
And when I say it was God, like I was shaking, and
Mm-hmm.
God began to give me the words to say, because I think
Absolutely.
sometimes we experience life, and I experienced this when I was a wife. There were times that God would speak to me and tell me, you need to talk not from the place of a broken woman right now. You need to minister to, this is your husband. You need to minister to your husband. And that was always an
Mm-hmm.
angle that, God dealt with me very often, when it
Sure.
came to my marriage, had to do with, all right, right now you need to be somebody that can minister. Like if there is brokenness here, you need to minister to that. You don't, I'll sustain you right now, but I need you to speak from this place here, which I always thought wasn't fair. I always felt like it didn't make any sense. And in that moment, it was like there's no difference. At the end of the day, God's main goal from me, from you, from anybody that's listening, is to win souls and
That's
to
it.
not be a hindrance.
That's
Period.
it.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
care whether you're an ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, bad child, cousin that you hate, auntie that you don't like. The main goal is that everybody make it in. And if
Yeah.
I'm going to be the person to hinder you from doing that, even in a situation where I feel like I'm in the right, or whether it's in a situation where you feel like you're in the right,
Mm-hmm.
that's my obligation.
I
And
get it.
so I came to him after that and I said, you know what? I feel like you're still this, you're still that. God has still called you. And after I got done talking from that point, I said, these children are both of our mandate.
Yeah.
We have 3 children who God is already speaking to, dealing with. And right now, it's hard enough to do it in a 2-parent household.
Sure.
Okay. It's hard enough to do it, with all the bells and whistles, like we say. My stepfather always says, nobody makes it out of childhood unscathed. Okay.
Right.
So
It's true. It's
don't,
true. It's
but
true.
we got to figure out
It's
and
true.
try to do the best we can with what God has given us. Because at the end of the day, you can hate my guts, but we have a mandate.
We got a mandate. We
And
got a
the mandate is
responsibility.
to raise these children
Mm-hmm.
in God and for
Mm-hmm.
them to see godly examples.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling him, I said, for me, just being transparent, I, came from a family on both sides where divorce was prevalent. And so for me, I did not want that. I
Sure.
said, I want to be what I have not seen. I want to be somebody that's successful ministry wise. I want to be somebody that's successful financially. And I want to be somebody who has a successful family.
Sure.
So for me, I created this,
Like all of
whatever
us
this
do.
means, like all of us do. Okay. I created it. I did this. Okay.
We
And
all do this, child.
you,
Everybody.
and it'd be like, boom. And reality hits. And we don't know
Mhm.
often, especially us church girls who are virgins when we get married and we do not know how to function in life. We don't know how to function through disappointment. We don't know how to function when, okay, you being a virgin don't mean that your marriage is going to last.
At
That
all.
was the that was the hard one. I was like,
Wait a minute. Hold the presses.
wait.
I was a good girl.
And God's like, it doesn't, no, that's for this. But for here, you're going to experience life. You're
Sure.
going to go through life.
Sure.
And kind of going back to what we were talking about, when I spoke with him, I told him, I said, at the end of the day, my thing is, I thought that breaking the generational curse was staying married. But actually, breaking the generational curse is going to be how we deal and how our relationship is going to be. And I want us to have a relationship that raises our children, that's conducive to the Spirit of God flowing between both of us,
Nice.
raising them up in the things of God, but then also being able to have amicable relationships, conversations regarding our children, and really wishing each other the best. That is a generational curse breaker.
Yeah,
For me.
I agree.
I said, so that is going to be where my
Mhm.
concentration is. And after that conversation, everything that we did, everything we do now is about our children. And it's about being examples for one another as well. So
Nice.
there's times I'll say, oh my God, something happens with our children. And I'll say, Carter, this and that. And God woke me up and whatever. And he said, oh, God had me praying over the kids. So for me, it has balanced out in that way. You
Nice.
know what I'm saying? Just keeping God first. And I was fortunate enough. I think through walking out that example of I could be, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And for who caught it, they caught it. And listen, if you missed it, I'm sorry you missed it. But it is necessary. You know, we always hear the cultural cliche, if they go high, you go higher. No, when or no, when they go
It
low,
goes
you go
low.
high. No, when they go low, we go lower. Because
Hmm.
humility is a weapon of mass destruction,
It
honey.
is.
There's something about humility, and really, and i- if you knew my history, meekness was not my strong suit.
Tear something up, huh? You was gonna tear something up.
Woo! You hear me? This
Yeah.
Richmond girl with
Yeah.
Zorro.
Yeah.
And what I have learned in really in finding my footing in sonship, not even just
Mm,
friendship with God, but
mm.
when I started to recognize the posture and the authority that comes with being a son of the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords, and knowing what I have access to,
Yeah.
I know I don't have to bark. I don't really even have to raise my voice above a whisper, because at the end of the day, any and everything has to acquiesce to his will.
Yes,
And as
ma'am.
long as I abide in that location, as long as I find myself in my proper posture
Yeah.
concerning him, right? So the word says, seek ye first the kingdom of
Yes.
God, and everything else will be added unto you. Well, people always use that in reference to liquidity or financial security and stability. But the reality is, your heart in his care is always safe.
Yes, ma'am.
And it just means that barking gets us nowhere. And it's unnecessary emotional output.
Yes.
That's what I feel like. Um, when Josiah got ready to go to Atlanta, his father and I took him to the airport. And if you know anything about our history, it wasn't always the best. But now I'm the believer. So, you know, and not that he doesn't believe in God, but he not highly relational
Yeah.
concerning things of Christianity. Amen.
Right. Right.
And so um our relationship today is stellar. Like
Yeah.
that's my friend. Like I love him, I respect him. And there were some decisions that I had to make concerning how we moved around financially that nobody agreed with. There were some things that I accepted with no rebuttal, and people be like, "You not going?" Listen, this is not about me.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
not about money. This is about my son having the
Yes.
gift of learning what it looks like to be loved by his father. And so this
Yes.
is for those of you who have dealt with me and who don't have God as head, who don't have
Yes.
God as leader, who ain't gonna tell you I was praying for Junior last night.
Right.
Because
Right.
that's not what they have to give. But I'm gonna tell you a secret, sis. My grandmama used to say it like this: you catch more bees with honey than you ever do with vinegar.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And you know, it is the most powerful thing ever to get to a place where you can trust what's in you, not
Right.
around you.
Right.
Not
Right.
around you.
That's
That
good. That's
because
good.
if you start looking around and don't nothing look like what you thought it was supposed
Right.
to, and
Right.
that grief of the idea of this foolishness we do,
Yes,
all this
ma'am.
stuff.
Yes, ma'am. I'm telling you, I know I was doing some stuff. Okay. I know.
This is going with me here going forward, honey. This is the new. What are you doing, honey? I was doing a bunch
I
of.
was doing.
Listen, I was putting on, as that's what they say in Atlanta. I was putting
Yes.
on for the camera, putting on,
Yep.
putting on for the church. How do you think? How has the church made you feel through this process? Real talk.
Ooh,
Woo,
man,
do it
that's
again. Woo.
that's a good one because I went to a conference. I think last year? Or probably was around the time that a lot of this people I couldn't hide it no more.
Sure.
Right. So I remember going there and there's a difference between the way the church treats you as a wife
It
and then
is.
when you're single,
Come
right?
on.
There's a
Talk
difference.
about it.
There's a major difference.
Ma'am.
I mean, it's like I didn't notice the club that is exclusive to married women. Where when I was married, I could go to a church and minister and not have to think nobody treated me no type of way. Now, okay, as a single woman, I have to be cognizant of where I go and what I do because I don't want anybody looking and thinking and whatever.
And
Those are
look,
things that
and you cute.
people have, they come up with and it was a way that I had to talk to God. And I'm like, I don't like the way this feels. I don't like feeling, I just want God. I'm here sitting in the back because I just want God. I don't want anything else. Right. And there is a way that the church can so often make you feel like when you're not a wife, that you're not a part of this exclusive club. And then maybe, especially don't be divorced. Don't just be single, but don't be divorced. And you're anointed, you're up singing, you're doing, oh, what does that look like? What does that even look like to be a young woman, mother, divorced in ministry? What does that look like? Where do you know what I'm saying? So because I
Heck
remember
yeah, I
going to
know.
a conference, and my friend actually asked me, she said, how does it feel for you? And I said, man, I never realized. Now, this was around the time that things were just getting out. I said, I never realized that going around in those circles made me feel so worthless at this point.
Mm.
Like it literally made me feel like I had nothing to say. I didn't matter. I felt like everything was geared toward a type of family. And meaning husband, wife, children, the ministries were curtailed to that. And I felt like there was not a lot of support for where I was. And that was
Mm.
very difficult for me. And it was very hard for me,
Mm.
going from feeling like, okay, I didn't have to do a lot of talking. I walk in with my husband and my children. Yeah, that did the talking. Coming in by myself with my children, people came up with stories and reasons and rhymes as to what, you know, they came up with their stuff.
Girl, that is about to be my thing, honey. This. Look, you
So
ain't got to look. I've been single a long time, dragging little boys behind me, so
I'm
I
telling you,
understand.
and
Hmm.
and so it I did feel like at the time that it was a very difficult situation. And, even my parents, they pastor. And so when I would come to the church, I would tell my mom all the time, there's a level of embarrassment that you feel,
Sure.
I'm embarrassed. I don't want to go around. I love God, but I'd rather sit at home. I'd rather be at home because right now I'm not at my best. I have this thing with my children where when they're acting up and doing their thing, I always say, are you at your best? No.
Mm.
What do you need to do to be at your best? Be obedient, listen. Okay, then you need to be at your best. Whatever you need to do to be at your best, be at your best, and then come back downstairs.
Hmm.
And so that's how I talk to my kids. And so for me, I said, I'm not at my best. When I'm not at my best, I don't have a desire to be around. I don't have a desire to come around because I want my interactions with people to be consistent.
Sure.
And if I can't be consistent, I don't want to come around. And so for me, that transition as far as being a wife, being an elder's wife, being a missionary, all ordained, both of us in that situation, the level of respect and honor and understanding that people just gave you didn't even have to earn it. They just gave it. And
Mm.
now everything for me is earned. Which is not
Mm.
necessarily a bad thing on that way, but I do
Mm.
feel like that's the the
That's
double standard.
cold game, no.
It
To
is.
even for you to break it down like you just broke it down, and that's a real thing. And I hope some leaders and pastors are listening.
Yeah.
I hope some women of God and some district missionary mothers and them. I hope you listening to
Yeah.
for real what women divorced, single, never married, whatever the case. Some of us literally just want God.
That's it.
That's it. Don't have an agenda. Don't have an objective. Just have a heart for God's people and another one being redeemed,
Right.
another one being set free, another one
Right.
being made whole. And I want to unpack. that S word. I want to unpack that E word. You said two powerful words because I think the culture of church does this, and I know it's all well meaning. I know it's learned behavior, but it's got to be unlearned, and
Yes.
it's got to change positions because we damaging people left and right,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Like real talk, to be embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't turn out the way
Yes.
just
Yes.
it
Yes.
didn't turn out the way we flitted it to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to be mm, made to feel ashamed. You
Right.
know, it's already disappointing.
Right.
But to go to the place that's supposed to be the safest,
Yeah.
to go to the place where we are commanded to love,
Yes.
where we are commanded to restore people back to the faith, not only not feeling welcome, but now noticing that there is a wives club.
Right. Right.
There's a missionary club.
Right.
There's a listen. It, remind me to tell you about this dream I had. Holy Spirit told me to share it. It's so much um that I gotta process it before I spit it all the way out, even though I have, but like it's a lot. When I think about how the culture of religious church um, makes you shame because it didn't turn out the way you thought.
Right.
It totally disbands the truth of Romans 8 and 28 that even what we see
Yeah.
around us is
Yeah.
working for us, and it didn't come
Yes.
to kill us, and it wasn't intended to make us shame, and it isn't intended to bring us low, but it is a constant reminder that he
Yes.
is, and
Yes.
he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. But what I know for a fact is we as the body of Christ, we got to do better about assisting women going through processes that they never thought that they would have to go through,
Yeah.
especially when we got babies, because we're raising generations
Yes.
after generations. We got to do better about teaching young women, listen, you don't got to hit him over his head. It's not about this money, because the way
Right.
your child learns to love his father is the
Yes.
way he's going to receive the love of the father.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm telling you what I know.
Yes, ma'am.
It makes all the difference in the world. And when we teach our children to respect their father, I don't care what happened with us. That's your
Right.
father,
That's your dad.
period.
Yes.
Dot,
Yes.
dot. That's the end of that. And I don't
Yes.
care all of this, that, and the other. I don't care what happened with us. That's your father, and
That's
he's
it.
necessary.
He's necessary.
He's
Yes.
necessary. Right?
Yes.
So talk about um what shame meant to you. Why did you choose shame and embarrassment as two words?
Shame and embarrassment, mainly not just because it ended, right? But the things that ended it. The things that the people that knew, people that um I knew, people that he knew, people that we were connected to,
Shame.
people who did not know the full story and chose sides, and the way that they chose sides. You
Mhm.
know, it was so many.
Elements. Huh?
It was so many elements to it in so many different areas that made it to where I was the one that I could, I didn't play an instrument. So I wasn't up there every Sunday and could hide behind an instrument. My gift, unfortunately, is something I can't do haphazardly. I can't get up there and do it. I can't. So when I'm going through, I sit myself down. I don't need to be sat. I will sit myself.
Come on, and not vomit on the people.
I'm big on that.
Me
So
too.
I will sit myself down and I will figure out, because right now, like I said, I'm not at my best. And so for me, trying to process all those emotions. And then as a woman, you know, when you allow certain things to make you want to come out of your character, and you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But it was that kind of stuff. And then realizing, like, you know what? I have to realize that some people don't know. And then there's some people that do. And the people that don't, I don't know explanation. People that do, I don't owe an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
But I did deal with the shame and embarrassment of, okay, I'm in ministry. I was a family, like wife first. Wife first. You didn't see me nowhere without my children or my spouse. That was what it was. And I prided myself on being an effective wife and mother.
I get it.
And so when your life is centered around how well you do that, or
Mm-hmm.
how much effort and time and energy you put into that for it to end. Um, and I would like to say both of us, essentially, in the eyes of people, are good people. So
Sure.
people who don't understand, um, they come up with things, and it was just so many different, like you said, moving parts
Sure.
that made it to where I was like, I feel like I can't get up and sing and
Mm-hmm.
talk to nobody about nothing. My life is trash right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get up and sing and tell nobody about the goodness of God, and I'm still questioning whether or not He's even real at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or if He's even here, if He's
Mm-hmm.
there, I don't even know.
It's
So,
real.
what am I going to get up and sing to you about? And my thought process was locking my kids in the house and walking across 99. How
Listen,
can
it's
I
real.
how can I help somebody? And so for me, dealing with the guilt of, I don't even want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Why
It's
am I
real.
even alive at this point?
It's real.
So dealing with that and coming to church and then experiencing the presence of God at times when He could move through all of that mess and finally get to my heart. And then I
Sure.
begin to feel the, almost like Eve and Adam, like I'm naked. I'm not covered. I'm not covered. My covering is gone. Not just physically,
Sure.
but emotionally, I'm uncovered.
Sure.
I'm prickly right now. Anybody could walk up to me and say something to me, and I'll bleed.
Sure.
And being that level of uncovered, which I was not used to being that way. I was used to being somebody who's very sure of herself, and very, even if in the areas that I was not confident, being able to present and show up and be that. And yes, straight up, listen, I'm telling you, prophesying with them hands now. Okay, I didn't prophesy, you prophesy.
Ta-da! Abracadabra, alakazam, shape of confidence. Psych.
I was able to do that. And then now you can see, when I say you
You
can
can
see
see
me,
me? Like, look, like that time when we was in Antioch, and I was like, now listen. And that's the face right there. You just was like, you was like, I don't got no hands right now. No hands.
yeah,
You didn't have no hands in that
no,
moment.
no, no.
You didn't have no hands in that moment. Let me say this. You just said so much good stuff, Cherael. I promise. You know, one of the things that whole uncovered idea.
Yes.
Pastor Tyron Carter would say, anything left uncovered too long will soon spoil.
Woo.
That's a real thing, and I think being a single woman for I've been a single for a really long time, and absolutely by choice.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't mean to end up single. It didn't work out the way that I planned,
Yeah.
right? But I think as time goes on, um, you kind of learn that not only are you covered,
Mm.
um, even in your singleness, but the level of coverage that you have when you realize that you don't have to cover you,
Right.
right? And I can even imagine, I remember being married and knowing that if anything happened, I could call my husband at the drop of a hat, on his way.
Yeah.
Whatever was going on, he gonna handle it.
Yeah.
Even with the concept or the idea of walking into church and both of y'all elders and both of y'all in ministry, and the way that you were treated. I remember one time, and I'm gonna say this just as loud as I want to. I went to Act Full Gospel. I sure did. And
Wow.
I had to sing it. I sure said it. I did. I said it. Um, and I started not to, but I said it because that lady was so mean.
Mm.
I had to sing at a funeral. My really good girlfriend, her husband, I don't know if you remember this, her husband killed her in the parking lot of Acts Full Gospel.
Wow. Yes. Wow.
And she was a very dear friend to me, and I went to go minister. And so I called myself getting out the way. I'm the one that's always going to sit in the back.
Mm-hmm.
But because the church is so large, I didn't want to sit too far in the back because I knew I was going to have to get up to the stage.
Mm-hmm.
I knew hundreds on top of hundreds of people was going to be there. I didn't want to be in the way. So I went and sat in the back in the cut in the minister's wife section. I didn't know
Oh.
it was the minister's wife section.
Mm.
Baby, the way that lady talked to me,
Wow.
she embarrassed me so bad, only for my girlfriend's mother to say, Dion, come sit next to me on the front row.
Wow. Wow.
And I remember the lady looked at me, and I hadn't gone through my sanctification process yet.
Oh Lord.
I wasn't disrespectful, but I mean I rolled my eyes. My feelings were really hurt because I just wanted to sit in a chair out of the way. There
Yeah.
was nobody over there. I literally sat in the corner. But the fact that it was the minister's wife section, she could have done that totally differently. And no disrespect at all to Pastor Jackson, because it wasn't him. It was just a person, and she was
Yeah.
just doing her job. Today I'm grown and I get it, but
Right.
it was a marring experience. I felt it. You know what I still remember it, and it's uh, like maybe 17 or 8. It's years later.
Wow.
It's a
Yeah.
very long time later, and how we treat people, um, and especially when people are going through their own process, it is just so nice to be kind.
It is. It is.
It's nice to be kind. You never know what people are going through in their moment, in that time, in that season. So I'm gonna take this and shift it, Cherael, because listen, it wasn't all bad. It wasn't fun. The
Yeah.
process wasn't fun, but no different than I saw you that day sitting on that pew in Antioch. Today I see you. And I want to say publicly, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You have gracefully, and I know every day wasn't fun, every day wasn't easy, but you literally have gracefully, Cherael. Um, I'm watching you on this for singing at this and on your way to that and on your way to this. And I know that if you knew that you weren't well, you wouldn't do it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the part.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
the part I know.
Yes. No, yes. Yes.
So let's talk about this. Tell me, and I think especially when just a year out, it takes a while because there's a grieving process you absolutely
Oh
have to go
yeah.
through
Oh
with
yeah.
divorce. And I mean, you might still be doing a little bit. You
Hmm.
got to do a little bit to manage and maintain to get up.
Right,
But
right, right.
at least they're not flailing all over the place. Every now
Right.
and then you got to shuffle your hands.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get up because it's different.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother ballgame. That single mommy thing, that's a,
Yeah.
a, a. But tell me when you knew you were ready to get back up again, when recovering well kind of started to kick in. Tell me what that looked like.
That's such a good question. I'll say, um, I knew when my prayers shifted from a place of hopelessness to gratitude, full on gratitude. I got to a point where I said, I get it. And I remember this was back in March.
Mm.
I remember being at my aunt's conference, and I wasn't supposed to sing. I really didn't want to sing or anything like that. I just came because I wanted to support. And they had singers and stuff there. My cousin, my best friend, she sings. So it was. I just wanted to come to just support. And so I remember they needed somebody to sing um, the last worship song. And usually this song, my family would ask me to sing this song ever since I sung it at my uncle's funeral. And it meant something different than a song by Miranda Curtis, Thank You. And
Mm-hmm.
she just says, in my life, be glorified, be glorified. So I was singing that song. And when I got to the part where I said, in my life, you get the glory, you get the praise, and I started to say, I understand. I didn't get it, but you get all the glory. Every tear, every time I had a question, every time I felt by myself, laying on my bed, crying, literally, when I say for days straight,
Listen, I get it.
I was literally in my bed for days.
I get it.
And getting down saying, you know what? I get it now. I understand now. I don't question you anymore because I see your hand now. You're
Mm-hmm.
showing me your hand now. I didn't get it before. And so when my understanding caught up to where I was and where my gratitude began to just overtake me, where I'm just like, God, this, it didn't feel good, but I'm not dead. I have
Right.
my right mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still like, my children are well. And I'm like, I made it through so much. I've made it through cancer scares. You know what I'm saying? I've made it through, when the doctors told me things and told my mom, and we're sitting in the oncologist's office. I know what that you get the glory is.
Mm-hmm.
But to know you as my personal savior,
Mm-hmm.
to know you as the God who cares about my heart, that
Yeah.
is a whole different
Ball game.
level. And when I say it came full circle from when I was 19 years old, I remember having a conversation with God and I refused to tell him yes.
Mm.
I know my mom and my brother remember this. I said, I'm not saying yes. And I remember as clear as day, I said, because God will not allow me to have the family I want if I tell him yes. At
Mm.
19 years old. And my auntie Robbie came to the back of the church. She said, y'all stop trying to make her say yes. Cherael, just focus on how much you love him. Just tell God how much you love him. The yes will come. And that was the one thing I couldn't deny. I knew I loved God.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing
Mm-hmm.
that kept me in. I knew I loved him.
Yeah.
I love God. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But to know him and for it to be something that's unshakable, I struggled there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when God brought it full circle and he said to me, you have literally feared following me because you wouldn't have the family and the you wouldn't have all of that, right? You feared that.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came full circle where I told God, if it's just me and my children, if it's just me, I have found full fulfillment, the fulfillment that I thought I needed or had in simply being a wife and a mother. I have found that level of, for the lack of a better word, it's the only word I could think of. I found that high in the presence of God
I
and
get it.
fulfilling my purpose and doing what he has called me to do. I don't want to
Nothing like
jeopardize
it.
that. So I
Listen.
can't afford not to say yes because
Listen.
I live there
Yes.
and I need that. And
Yes.
so I think for me,
Yes.
that coming full circle to, I can't tell you yes because you're not going to give me the family I want, to I can't afford to not tell him yes. Bunk everything else.
Everything else.
You know what I'm saying? I want this more than I even
Yes.
want this.
Absolutely.
When
I
my
get it.
world crumbled and I understood, and it became, I'm so grateful that you chose me
Mm-hmm.
and you trusted me
Mm-hmm.
to go through and still hold on to you and to allow. I think for me, and I'm gonna say this is the last part for me, going through and sitting for that time and allowing God to pour back into me and allowing myself to grieve and process, and then to be able to minister and to feel the free flow of the Spirit of God.
Listen.
It felt like a stamp of approval. And that
Yeah.
for me was like, yep, you can go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't, when I don't have a point to prove, when I don't
Exactly.
have anything, I don't care. I
Mhm.
don't care what anybody has to say. I have to do the will of God for my life. I
Absolutely.
have to be obedient to God. And nothing beats being used by God. And if I have to go through to be used by God where I know it's Him
Mhm.
and He's speaking to me clearer and
Mhm.
He's using me clearer and He's using me from a different place
Mhm.
that I know I wouldn't have been able to be used from,
Listen.
it's like, it's worth it. I see it, I get it. And I think for me, having that full
Mhm.
circle moment and being able to, I remember after I got done singing, my mom is like my harshest critic, okay, since I was young. Okay, I
Mhm.
remember singing one time and and she said, "You ain't about to get up and embarrass me. You can take your tail right."
She got you clean
She don't
together.
play. Okay, she don't. My mama does not play. I was
Right.
young, 12 years old, and I'd be laughing and playing with my friends. And my mom say, "Are you listening? God
Right.
didn't tell you were gonna be asked to sing." I'm like, "This ain't even my church. I don't." Oh, we're gonna ask sister. And my mom said, "You're not even listening. You need to stay in tune." I remember being trained like that,
Yeah,
and
it's
so
important.
from my mom after the fact, after I got done singing, she pulled me in and embraced me and said, "I'm so proud of you, Cherael." Like, it was a level of freedom and a level of undeniable, God is with me. He is with me. And
Yes.
I felt that. And I think for
Yes.
me, that coming full circle and it being that same thing that I had been experiencing in my house, you
Sure.
know, during the pandemic and everything else. But I'll say when that came full circle was when I knew, like, okay.
Mhm. I get it. I not only do I get it, but there's a level I think that you get to where you release and you give yourself permission to not think about anything other than him. And
Yes.
the fact that, number one, I know you sent me here to do a thing. And not
Yes.
everybody gets there because religion will have you think that church is all that it is.
Right.
But when you start to know him and when you experience him as everything, when you
Yes.
experience him as comforter, when you experience him as peace, when you experience him as joy, when you experience him as provider, when you experience him as covering, as
Yes.
restoration, as breath, as,
Yes.
I mean, like for real, when the thing shifts, not from church. Now
Yes.
you way past church, not even from
Right.
I sing good, not even
Right.
from I got something to say
Right.
when I open my mouth, but
Right.
the fact that I can feel your presence actively operating in my life and
Yes.
on my life and through my life
Yes.
is, there's no greater reward ever.
Yes.
And I think once you experience, this ain't a lack of better words, that high,
Yes.
that level of intoxicating,
It is.
vicious, adamant, vehement love that can't come from not from a spouse, not from a parent, not even
Yes.
from a child. It is something that you end up chasing hard and fast after. The word
Yes,
says it
ma'am.
like this: he who seeks me
Yes.
finds me. And I believe that if we as believers would, what I call, press into the painful place
Yes.
and find yourself postured for gratitude, even when it hurts, something so amazing comes out of that. And so I want, real quick, if you just give us one bar, even of that little song. I want people to hear what I know,
Okay.
just a little bit.
In my life, be glorified, be glorified. In my life, be glorified, be glorified. You get the glory, you get all the praise,
Yeah.
you take the honor. I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
You get all the glory, you get all the praise,
Mhm.
you take the honor. I just want to say thank you. We
Mhm.
just want to say thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Oh, Lord, you've been so good. I want to say thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, in my life. You get the glory, Lord. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, in my life, be glorified. Be glorified.
Yeah. Yeah. That part. That part. It's a big, big deal.
Yes,
Big
ma'am.
deal. And if I know nothing else, I know um, he already used you mightily in a very strong way. I'm excited about what's to come. And just real quick, I want to share with all of you that are watching. Listen, she has a new single right now.
Yes.
Listen,
I'm
I
serious.
give you me. Right. And if we don't know nothing else, when you go through the way this young lady has gone through and processed, listen, it's on Apple Music, it's on iTunes, it's on
Mm.
Spotify, and you can even find it on YouTube. Listen, go download it, hit play, play, play,
Yes.
share, share, share. And if you'll see at the bottom, I'm running her official names, her pages for Facebook and IG at Cherael_official, right? Or
Yes.
Cherael J. Wynn Ross on Facebook. Make sure you take time to subscribe and to follow and keep your eyes on this young lady. Listen, I see pretty good. And I see your future, as the old church ladies used to say. It looks bright, honey.
I receive it.
And I'm excited about what is going forward, and we're going to have to do this again because I know there will be updates in the immediate future.
Yes, ma'am.
And I say that prophetically, and I'm expecting that. I'm excited for even what God does through you being yielded to the presence of God, so that your children will get the very best out of you and their father.
Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate you honoring the God in him in spite of
Yes.
the transition.
Yes.
That takes maturity, that
Yes.
takes honor, that takes great home training, that
Yes.
takes respect, and it's a stellar example for your babies.
Thank you.
And I salute you, woman of God.
Thank you.
Just as a mother and a wife, I'm single, but
Yes. No,
that
right,
does not
right,
change what I am, right?
right.
I absolutely salute you, and I'll give you last words, and we'll wrap it up.
I just want to say anybody that's going through or experiencing life and feeling like this is where it ends, it does not. It doesn't end here. Your life does not. God never will leave us, especially if you are seeking and chasing Him and your heart is to be in the will of God. He never leaves you at the worst part of your story. There is something else that is He's trying to get out of you. And
Yes.
I'll just say, be yielded to that process, be yielded to whatever your journey looks like and wherever God
Mhm.
has you going, and literally chase that with
Yeah.
everything in you. And as you begin to chase that, God will unfold his hand to you and for you. And then he'll start to use you. And so I just praying for everybody out there that's experiencing life. Go, go, be your great self, be your best you. Or like I tell my children, are you
Are you
being
being
at
your
your
best?
best? Are you being your best self? Go be your best self,
Very good.
whatever that looks like. Chase being your best self.
Very good. I love it. Well, listen, I love you.
I love
Again,
you.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm excited. I ain't going nowhere. You stuck with me, honey, and I'm watching like this.
Yes,
Go, baby,
ma'am.
go.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll be standing in the background. Go, go, Cherael, go. You already know I'm a little. You know
Yeah.
I'm pep up.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
But I thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
me here on Soul Shift. It has been a pleasure, and I know that the people are blessed. Well, thank you all for watching. Don't forget, subscribe, look for the notifications. Don't forget to share. If this has blessed you, make sure you pass it on to somebody else. Don't forget to follow Cherael on IG and
Yes,
on
follow me.
Facebook and download I Give You Me.
Yes.
Right now. Go download it now. All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you for